All right. Let's settle down. It's just crypto.
I am Just, but my mom will call me Justin. Welcome to part 3 of my DFK Combat Hero Guide for Beginners. This time we are going to be throwing the two heroes we found the last time in the tavern into the pit and see what comes out. This is the pair from last video, an archer and a seer. Both were quite cheap. In fact, the seer even leveled up pretty well for somebody else before they decided to sell them, but we're going to try for a fresh hero on our own. We are hoping for at least 2 advanced traits to go along with a regular stone. That's what I've decided on. You could debate whether this is worth a regular stone, but if I get 2 leaderships on a seer and get a little bit of rarity boost, I do want to use it for PvP and hunts. So I'm going to do that because I have regular stones. You could do a little budget decision to do a lesser stone. I'll show you the price difference in just a second. Before then, let's review exactly what is happening with these dark summoning pit mechanics one more time. Level 7, level 5, that's going to average out to 6, both uncommon. That's going to create an uncommon floor. We are hoping to get lucky and upgrade to a rare, legendary, or especially mythic 1.5%. Must be nice if you get it. I am going to be using a regular swiftness stone on this, mostly because I have a lot of regular stones because I'm a dueler. I'm going to definitely be using the tier boost for 1 extra wisdom and 1 extra dex. This is based on the highest stat of each of these heroes. I just noticed it still says they're owned by their previous owners. That's untrue. I guess it just takes a second for that to update. But anyways, wisdom and dexterity are the 2 highest stats there, so that's what's going to pass on to the hero. We're going to give it plus 6 agility and quite a lot to its growth throughout the course of its life. So I'm hoping to actually get lucky here. Obviously, I mean, you always are, and get a nice seer here. But I like speed on an archer as well. That is kind of the problem of mixing classes like this. Seer and archer don't have too many things that they both want. You could argue for vitality on any pair, basically. You could argue for agility on any pair, basically. But with these two, especially agility is very nice. And I think agility is going to be quite good for patrols if I end up getting just a floor hero here. Getting to go first with a damage dealer, like an archer, for example, or for your seer, who's going to be able to use the protective barrier skill. If you're brand new, you don't know what that is, you'll figure it out eventually. But yeah, I think going first, especially if the enemies are really weak in the beginning, just getting to go and killing one before they get to go at all is basically like free healing. They never get to attack you. So I think that makes a lot of sense for agility stones for low level content, just to get that first turn, as opposed to in PvP you make more of an argument for vitality. But these guys aren't going to get all that many levels, so vitality is not as important. So yeah, I feel good about this summon. 40 tiers is not much. Let's go ahead and look in the market and see what this is costing me exactly. If I were to buy these 40 tiers, it's a fraction of a penny, like half a penny, so negligible. If I were to buy this regular swiftness stone, it would be considerably more than that. You can buy here in the market if there's liquidity. Oh, hang on. If there's liquidity, and there usually are on the regulars. Yeah, combined, we're going to call this 91 crystal. All right, so like I said, the stone, especially if you do a regular, you could also do this with a lesser. I'll show you that price difference in just a second. But you see the stone is actually the most valuable thing that we're putting into the pot so far. That's why it really matters for dark summons, like I said, as opposed to the regular portal, that you can control the floor. Like, you don't want to get a common, you want to have as good of a chance as possible to get a rarity boost, and the dark summon portal really helps you with that and helps you just stack on this is worth stats. This is worth stats. The crystals that we're going to use, that's going to be the last part of this stew while we're leveling it up to get our final price, is also going to be worth stats as well. That's going to be in the next video when we level it up. But right now, let's go back and see, for comparison's sake, excuse me, the lesser stone is only, so it's considerable difference to go from 4 crystal essentially to 90. So if you're doing this definitely on a budget, there is no shame at all in going for a lesser Swiftest Stone. You see you get 4 agility as opposed to 6, and you get significantly less stat growth with the lesser, and you save 80, what did I say, 85 crystal. So yeah, if you're on a budget like that, there's nothing wrong with lesser stone, guys. But I'm aiming a little bit higher because this pair is pretty nice. If it were worse, if I couldn't find something I liked as much as this, I would maybe go for a Swiftness Stone and say this is, almost certainly just going to patrol for me. But this guy has a little bit of a chance to be a PvP hero, actually. I really want a double leadership on a seer, for example. So this is the process, trust the process. The results are the results. If I get an uncommon monk out of this, it doesn't mean we screwed up. If I get a seer here with no advanced traits, it doesn't mean we screwed up. We gave ourselves a good chance, a 50-50 chance pretty much to get 2 traits. If we get lucky, we can even get 3 traits. 4 is kind of magical Christmas land, but yeah, it can happen too. But if 3 traits would be amazing. Double leadership would be amazing. Getting a legendary or a mythic would be amazing. Everything else is just kind of ho hum, let's do another one. We're making patrollers, we're getting on with our lives, but we have potential. We have potential to make a really good card here. So I'm going to expend the regular stone because I have a lot. If you use a lesser one, I wouldn't fault you at all. Other than that, there's not too much to talk about. We have really good green stats. Vitality and dexterity are both excellent. Foraging I like because you can level it up easier. I don't want to hit my priest subclass with an archer, but it is what it is. Seer is actually fine for priest. Thief for more speed. Seer. So my archer really wants to hit the thief subclass if it's going to be a good archer, but what I really want to avoid is this 10% monk or even the scholar, because then we will have done all this for nothing. If we get the 10% chance of getting screwed and then we get screwed, it doesn't mean that we made a mistake. It's just, that's how statistics work, right? You trust the process and live with the results. Speaking of which, let's hit the button. If this is your first time doing this, by the way, you may have noticed in the tavern and in the marketplace that you have to approve all of your tokens to spend. This is all on chain. This is all tokens. The heroes and the equipment and pets are all NFTs. Everything else is a token. That's why it could come into a liquidity pool, like I showed you with the swiftness stones and the tiers and such. But you do have to approve them. I don't have to, is because I've done plenty of summoning here before. But if you're wondering why your screen looks different than mine, if you're trying to follow this guide, that is why. So we are going to expend 23 crystal, 40 tiers, 2 heroes, and a swiftness stone and see what we get. All right, first you infuse the crystal, then you wait for the timer, and then you do a second transaction to hatch it. This actually puts an NFT in your wallet temporarily, whether you do either portal, and then you need a second transaction to hatch it. And that's when all of these RNG calculations, that's when we'll decide if we have 77% foraging or something else. And basically everything on here, including all the visuals, are dealing with recessives and dominant traits in order to come up with the final result. I'm not worried about element or background or visuals at all, by the way. I'm not really worried about profession either, to be clear, but there's just a bunch of stuff on this card that I'm not even covering because this game is very vast. Crafting genes as well. If you want to learn more about DFK, there's tons of material if you got many hours to spend catching up. It's super cool. Anyways, let's get lucky. Hopefully we get a seer or an archer. I'm actually quite happy with either. Also a decent chance we get a priest, which is not my favorite for an agility stone, but it's not the end of the world either. All right, so we have got an archer. I'm going to click it. I will have a good chance for it being green, which means we got the floor. Otherwise, we are happy. It is green, unfortunately, with the priest subclass, so far it's not going great. Could be worse. Like I said, we have 5 level ups banked. That's because we averaged a 7 and a 5, so our level 1 can level up 5 times in the next video. And we got purple vitality. That means both of the stat bonuses were on that, which is fine. You can see here that I'm getting a big bonus to my agility from the stone. I'm also getting 1 more wisdom and 1 more dex from those tier bonuses, and I did get foraging. But what I really want is to hit 2 or 3 traits. That would be great. I'd be very happy with 2. We got 0, unfortunately, so this is going to be just a grunt, a ham and egger who's going to be grinding away at these patrols for quite a while. There's our leadership in our recessive. If we killed it again, we might have a chance to get it. Not really worth it for this. Pure archer, who cares? So we kind of got rugged on this. Not so much. I mean, we were 90% to get a codex hero, so that's why we're doing this, is that even when we get rugged, I get a good patroller. This guy will patrol very well. He just doesn't have much more value than that. You can eventually hunt with this too. It's fine, but not super excited in expending resources to level him up for hunts. I'm just going to use this guy for patrolling and wish we hit more traits, but hey, that's life. So I'm actually re-recording the end of this video right now. I pushed something out a little bit too quickly last night, thinking that patrols might come out, but it seems like it will be a couple days more, so I might as well get it right. I do want to talk about exactly what the stats mean, because it does affect the decision of what stone to use. I noticed a couple things I didn't touch on that I want to right now. Namely, we should take a minute and look at the archer we summoned here a little more closely. So Dexterity is the archer's greatest stat by a lot. If you've played any sort of RPG, you probably already knew that, even though I didn't say it. But what you want to think about, and this is a rough guide, is what the growth stats, that's what the stone affects, that's what crystals will affect, that's what subclass affects, that's also what the blue stat, which I kind of glossed over, affects, is the growth stats. So this guy is only going to level up 5 times, so it matters a little bit less, but it is important to realize this if you're summoning for a PvP hero that's going to level up to 20. That archer that we just summoned was main class archer, subclass priest, which is bad because the stats that are important for an archer in this order are dexterity, agility, strength, luck as well, kind of more or less in that order. But priest has a different growth profile, as you might suspect. It is a spellcaster, therefore it's going to prioritize in its growth stats intelligence and wisdom, which makes for a worse archer as opposed to like an archer as a subclass or something better even. So this rough prioritization of stats is going to affect the stone that I used. I used agility because it is an extremely stat for both the archer and the seer, which were my two most likely results. The reason I didn't use like wisdom, thinking I was going to get a seer, as we saw, if I get an archer instead, it's going to be bad. The reason I didn't use dexterity, which I might do if I was doing 2 archers, is because if I get it on the seer, it'll be bad. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it is something you want to try to avoid. So that is the reason I use the swiftness stone. I think in general, well, you're going to want to realize what these stats do. In the doc, it hasn't been updated too much, I think, recently, but let me just go through it. So strength is going to be mostly for your melees. That's warrior, knight, berserker. It's going to highly affect their damage based on the weapons they're using. It is also important for the other classes to get a certain floor of strength because strength affects what weapons you can equip, and what weapons you can equip affects pretty much everything. Your attack power, your efficacy on your spells and such. So strength, even on a seer and a priest, we're going to see when I'm leveling up, I'm going to talk about why I want to prioritize strength on guys that are going to be patrolling, guys that are going to end up low levels. It's because I want to use a better weapon. Dexterity is accuracy. You, of course, do 0 damage when you miss. Agility, which is what we use, determines the time between... Okay, so yeah, this is a little bit old language. That just means speed. And also some defensive abilities. There's some other stuff that I'm glossing over in terms of time. Dex also helps you block and such. Vitality is also good on everybody. This affects your HP more than anything. But for lower level heroes like the one I just made, it's a little bit less important because most of what's going to determine your HP pool is RNG. Kind of sucks, but that's how it is. Endurance is a bit of a more nuanced stat. It's not that great, but it can be really good if you're wearing heavy armor. And then intelligence and wisdom are both caster stats. I'm not going to go into. Luck gets a small bonus on a ton of things. All of these classes have skills that also matter with these stats. So that's the general overview of what the stats do. That's why I used the stone I did. I would say if we were to do a quick, subjective, not at all set in stone guide onto what stone to use, you could think about some combinations of heroes that want to either use the same things. So warrior, knight, berserker, those are the 3 melees. Strength if you're going to go more damage focused, vitality if you're going to go more defensive focused, and then stuff that where you're starting to meld them together. Archer with a warrior, archer with a berserker. You can do dex pretty easily, so because it's very good on the warrior and the berserker as well. Or you can just kind of play it a little conservative and do vitality. I would do dex. I would do dex or strength if I'm aiming for a low level hero. I would do vitality, or if I have the stone, those tend to cost a little bit more sometimes. If it's a really good summon, and I think there's a good chance it's going to be a PvP hero that I take all the way to 20, I would opt towards the vitality. Then you have some kind of oddball combinations like priest and knight. I usually do a vitality with those together. Agility is a little less important on those, which is what I just did with the seer and archer. An archer, a warrior, knight, etc. You can just kind of, priest and seer is the same thing. I would use wisdom. I would use wisdom with 2 priests, wisdom with 2 seers. I would use strength with 2 warriors, or dex. Berserker, I would use strength or dex. With knight, I would use vitality for sure. And then with archer, I would always use dex if I was doing archer. So that's a quick explanation of why I used the stone I did. And if you're following this guide and you have a different scenario, don't just use an agility stone because I did. There are definitely a lot of times where you want strength, especially if you're going low level heroes, because a strength stone is going to let you equip a much better weapon than like a vitality. So even if I knew I was doing a knight that's probably not going to level past level 3, level 6 or something like that, I'm definitely using strength over vitality because I want him to be able to use like a good sword, squire sword, or a gore blade. But anyways, this is the hero we summoned. Can't pronounce its name, but that's fine. It's pretty much a rogue, bad subclass, no traits, whatever. We're going to do the best we can with it. He's going to be fast. He's not going to do a lot of damage because I'm going to need to level up strength to use a good bow. No traits, but I did get the heal. Fortunately, that's very good. Iron Skin I could do without. Duelist can come into play. Headstrong can come into play. especially if we summon this again and try to upgrade it. If it levels up really badly, I may end up throwing it back in the pit and just trying again, because if it's really bad, there's really no value in it. But hopefully she'll get some good RNG now that she's alive to make up for the bad RNG when she was summoned. Then again, we might have just summoned a potato. It's very possible when you're doing these dark summons to downgrade what you have. In fact, we have downgraded what we had. The heroes we had before were better than this one in a lot of ways. But if you're never taking the risk to get something really good, you'll never get that reward. You'll never get the lucky legendary or mythic that can aspire to greater heights. You'll never get that triple, double leadership in a daze or whatever, something really good like that, which we were hoping for. And yeah, you're just going to have to live with the potatoes, or you can just buy off the tavern and live with whatever people sell you. But I prefer to roll the dice, give myself a chance to get lucky, and deal with it when I don't. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this content, and we'll finish it off in the next one.